It's 1963, the height of Cold War. Inside the British intelligence service MI6 headquarters, all agents have been strongly focusing on investigating the Soviet espionage activities and individuals. Sadly, a dangerous message had received from the FBI that cluttered all their plans. Outside of the desk, everyone there were so nervous to understand what was happening, and when the message was finally revealed to the entire team, the shock swept through the room. A betrayal operation had been carried out by one of the MI6's highest-ranking officers. Anyone can believe this. Actually, this traitor's actions inflicted a significant harm on the Western intelligence, passed thousands of classified documents at the Soviet, and NATO military plans, and US nuclear strategy. All that for years, and no one could doubt him. Thus, he became a symbol of Cold War espionage and treachery. This is the untold journey of the British super spy Kim Philby. Although Kim Philby was a British man, however, he believed that Western democracies were unable to check the rise of the fascism, the ideology that he was influenced by. He was saying only Soviet Union that can save the world and make it a better place for living. In 1934, one of the KGB agents named Arnold Deutsch, also called by Otto, spotted him while he was studying at Cambridge University and did watch him closely. He could recruit him to work with the KGB to make spy offers against his country's plan. He talked to him and said,
"We need people who could penetrate into the bourgeois institutions."
Actually, Kim was not the only one who got recruited. He joined four others: Anthony Blunt, Guy Burgess, John Cairncross, and Donald MacLean. The five were a group of young men who attended Cambridge University between WW1 and WW2. These young men were politically radicalized, well-educated, and well-primed to enter the British halls of power. Known by the Cambridge Five, Kim was a perfect example of communist man. Thus, he was asked to join the British service, the SIS. They wanted him to be inside, with the access to the deepest intelligence. The first thing that Kim was obliged to do is erasing his socialist past and cutting all ties with any communist friends or family members to start the real journey. In 1936, Philby was working as a journalist for a British publication, and after passing his first mission successfully to cover a national civil war campaign in Spain, timing with the outbreak of WW2, Kim was mature enough to be triggered to his next penetration mission, joining the SIS. But how? To understand the case from all perspectives, the British security intelligence had a special and official recruitment mechanism, because it's not if the SIS were posting a job advert. Again, how Philby can get recruited? Actually, after 4 years from the outbreak of WW2, German forces made a great advance in Poland, Denmark, and Norway. They made a big losses on the western side, by other meaning most of spy agencies lost their spy network. Thus, the MI5 and SIS rushed to make an emergency recruitment, and it could hire a Guy Burgess, a team member of the Cambridge spy ring, and a friend of Philby, a committed man who met the intelligence service criteria, and what has been discovered later is so meticulous. Guy was also a Soviet agent. Thus, when he got there, he invited Philby to join the SIS or the MI6. Anyway, Philby started his work by training agents for underground propaganda. He shared some vital intelligence from what he learned from the Soviets. Due to the lack of the British spy services he was surrounded by, and also to strengthen his belonging there so no one could doubt him. Philby joined the MI6 that collects the Britain's foreign intelligence and was assigned to the Section V, the counterintelligence against the Soviets. All of the hardness of playing a double role agent, however, he could infiltrate smoothly into the deepest part, and hear how he did it. September 5, 1945, Ottawa, Soviet Embassy. A 31-year-old man Soviet spy called Igor Gozenko, a defector to the USSR, hurriedly stuffed over 100 classified documents into a briefcase. These documents reveals a Soviet spy network in Canada, Britain, and US, including information about the Soviet attempt to steal a nuclear secret. Gozenko quietly exits the embassy, fearing Soviet agents might already suspect him. He first went to the Canadian Department of Justice, but officials dismissed him, not fully understanding the gravity of his information, that he intended to reveal it. He went to Ottawa Journal newspaper office, but journalists were skeptical and refused to help. With nowhere to go, Gouzenko returned to his apartment, waited nervously. After a few minutes, Soviet agents knocked the door of Gouzenko after seeing him missing in the embassy. Gouzenko and his wife were feeling terrified inside their bedroom closet, where they were hidden, listening to the voices outside. Luckily, his neighbors suspected the commotion and called the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They could take Gouzenko into a protective custody, and the next day, he were at the Canadian Intelligence Office. The officials there read the whole document hidden inside Gouzenko's briefcase. The document displayed the list of named Soviet spies, including Canadians and British officials working for the USSR. Shockingly, they got to know the Soviets had infiltrated the Manhattan Project and attempted to steal nuclear secrets. As Philby knew about the last, he directly warned his Soviet handlers via secret channels about what British intelligence had learned from Gouzenko's revelations. As a senior MI6 officer, Philby was in position to control how British intelligence reacted to Gouzenko's information. He likely downplayed a certain aspect of defections to the Soviet networks. This may have delayed Western counterintelligence efforts, allowing the Soviets to withdraw or protect some of their spies before they were caught. Gouzenko's revelations triggered a deep suspicion about Soviet infiltration in Western intelligence. Here Philby felt that any action for sure will cost him a lot, but eventually he decided to advance forward. Before 2 years, 1943, the top-secret US and British created a code-breaking operation that aimed to decrypt Soviet diplomatic and messages who were intercepted from Soviet embassies and other communication channels. This called Venona Project. Inside both American and British intelligence agencies, agents there decrypted the messages exposed many spies, including the Cambridge 5 spy ring, which included Kim Philby. Luckily, the Soviet spies used code names and Philby's name never appeared in the decrypted Venona messages. But it exposed other Soviet spies who were part of his network. Among the list named, they were identified Donald MacLean, Philby's closest friend. As the MI5 began closing in on MacLean, Philby tipped him off, leading to MacLean's escape to Moscow in 1951, along with Guy Burgess. Here Philby became the only one left in Britain with a high suspicion surrounding him. The MI6 and even the FBI raised a red flags about the road mall in MI6. Who is he? During the same period, not just to the British intelligence, but also into the deepest US domestic and international spy craft, FBI. He was given a position in Washington, D.C. as the British intelligence liaison to the CIA and FBI. Philby accepted it and went off to the capital, unaware of what worse will face him there. From an office in FBI building, there was just a corridor that separated him from the two legendary men in FBI, G. Edgar Hoover, the longtime director of the FBI, and James Angleton, CIA counterintelligence chief. His main role represented in protect the CIA from Soviet infiltration and uncover KGB spies. Although the two men had a different personalities and leadership styles, however, they both took upon their shoulder to investigate and hunt the hidden traitor. After Burgess and MacLean's defections in 1951, Hoover was convinced there was a high-level mole in British intelligence. Thus, he ordered the FBI to stop sharing intelligence with any MI6 officers. Hoover couldn't accuse Philby by anything because there wasn't any evidence to charge Philby with. However, Philby became under suspicion. In 1956, MI6 arranged for Philby to be sent to Beirut to get him out of the way. He worked there as a foreign correspondent for The Observer and Economist. The situation remained the same for over a decade. On December 1961, CIA headquarters, Virginia, the chief of the CIA counterintelligence, James Angleton, was sitting on his desk. Suddenly, he received a message from KGB officer who defected to the CIA, called Golistin Anatoly, who did provide a goldmine of classified information exposing deep KGB penetration on Western intelligence agencies. Golistin didn't confess directly that Philby is a traitor, but James Angleton was smart enough to orient his suspicion thanks to the received reports from William King Harvey, James Angleton's close associate. In that moment, Angleton slammed his fist on the table. Directly, the FBI and CIA drafted a memo to MI6, warning Philby must be confronted immediately. But it was too late. A Soviet freighter docked in Beirut, where Philby was working, and slowly pulled away. Finally, Philby had disappeared from Beirut, fading into a grainy black and white Soviet newspaper headline, "British spy defected to Moscow." As the British intelligence service closed the file of that super spy, however, Kim Philby remains one of the most fascinating figures in espionage history, because his story is a really mix of betrayal, double lives, and Cold War intrigue.